What is good, rookies? I have got my assistant Apollo here with me to talk about our trades for round 3. This is Trade Talks. And before we get into it, thank you all so much for the love you've been showing on the live streams, on the subs, on the comments, on the likes. You guys have been absolutely nuts. There's been so much growth, and I can't thank you guys enough for it. We're almost at that 500 mark where we can start looking at memberships and getting to some really cool things. So let's get there. Let's smash it out. Let's get there before end of buy rounds, because if we can get there before, round 5, round 6, it just means we get to do more exciting things throughout the rest of the season. But without that, all said and done, let's get into the trade talks. Alrighty, so there's one big major problem in our trade talks for this week. And it comes down to a man named Tom Stewart, because we started him because he's our doppelganger. But the unfortunate part is, while I am injury-free, he is not. Minor PCL is a test to play this week somehow. Our trades are very heavily influenced on if he plays or not, because if he doesn't play this week, I suspect he misses next week as well. So it's these sort of situations that come up where I'm very concerned about what to do with him, because I do want to hold him. I don't want to have to trade him out. I might just have to, though. And if we really want him, he's going to be dirt cheap to bring back in. So, look, these sort of things do happen when we have starting players. And I definitely feel for those that traded him in last week, because this is rough goings. But if he does play, everyone's holding, despite how much cash he's going to bleed. So we have 2 trade scenarios, and we still have our targets down below. Hendo is a clear one, and this is the one trade we can lock in really despite anything else that happens. So we're going to bring in Henderson for Foss, because we want to make that cash. We want to get that 144k in the bank, because we need help. We need a loan. We need the bank man to help us. But you can see we've got a glaring problem in the name of Perryman that we need to deal with. Now, with just simply going from Foss down to Hendo, we can actually move Perryman himself to a Bale? No, to a Dale. Which I think is probably the most logical trade here. It makes the most sense. Price is about to go up. He's had 2 really good games. The role's persisting. Law's still, 4 to 6 weeks out. Bond's still got some time to come in. Things are likely to stay as they are. I'm not expecting a 140 when I bring him in. We've seen a 123 and a 136. I'm happy to bring him in if I get a 115 for the next 2 weeks. On average, I'd be happy with a 110 considering what we're paying. Now, there's all chances that he does get injured. He had an interrupted preseason. He wasn't that consistent last season. So his floor is a little bit concerning, but with Daniel going out of the team, does that potentially change things? Yeah, it potentially raises that floor. But given the price and how much you're paying for what is a nice ceiling, I think it's well worth bringing him in. Now, this man, Chop Stewie, is what we're going to call this video, because we don't know if we need to chop him or not. So if he does get up and play, he's on the team. We started him knowing he was a risk, and we'll keep him until we know if he's completely out for 2+ weeks. Even if he's out for 1 week, Geelong are well known for being very discreet and, I'm not say brief, but just blurry when it comes to their updates on injuries. We could see a really late exclusion like we did last week with Smith, which I don't want to do, because if we look at the games here, we're going to go through some options on what we want to do with Stewart, because the first 2 trades are very much locked in. We don't need any of the mid rookies, because we've got them all. Now, Sardis we are holding, but essentially we're going to hold him through next week. Well, through this week into next week, then use him as a loop. Can't use him as a loop this week because we have Essendon going up first on Thursday night, which team sheets should be out very shortly at the time of recording. However, do we need Connor O'Sullivan? So there's many ways we can think of how to turn Stewart into something. Now, I'm not yet convinced that Baz is going to be a must-have. He had a really high ceiling, yes. but he hasn't been able to string more than 2 games together. They're going to manage the absolute crap out of him given his season start, and they want him to play as many games as he can this season. So that means he's probably going to be managed very highly. And, they probably don't want to target easy games or what they would be considering easy games when they're going to need him for those tough ones, potentially at Brisbane and Essendon. So it's a 50-50 chance whether Stewart and Smith play this weekend. The weather prediction so far is that it's going to have like 60 mils of rain. It's going to be fully wet weather. It's going to be very scrappy. Dunkley's going to go have a ball. And there has been word that Geelong might put attention into, say, someone like a Cameron. And if they're moving like O'Connor to do attention into Cameron, I imagine they're probably going to try and send someone to Neil. So Dunkley, my man, could potentially have a really ripper game. I was going to captain Zorko, but we'll get into the VCs later, and I'll make sure I do it this time because I didn't do it in the last video. We're also going to look at rookies and who you can actually look to bring in from a rookie perspective that are on the bubble. So with all that said, what are we going to do if Stewart doesn't play? Well, if we use our first boost, if I can get through the first 2 rounds without boosting, I think we've done a solid. So who do we have in this price range? Because there's not a lot. We've already got Roberts. There's Amon, Among Us. I love the idea of this pick. He's only gone up about 22k or 16k or so. He was around just under 500. So 516 for what seems to be a really consistent score so far. Seems to be one of the playmakers that Hawks are looking to. He's got kick-ins. He gets more kick-ins when Sicily's thrown forward, which they're seeming to do most weeks. So I'm really loving the Amon pick. It's just that round 4 bye, which is annoying, but there are workarounds. We can, again, it's best 18. We can figure out a cover because most likely Pryor is going to go down to Bice next week. So we can have, unfortunately, like a trainer and a Bice cover, but we're going to be able to chop off the lowest 5 scores. So the risk isn't really there, essentially, because we're going to have our main guys. We're only missing 1 primo. Or keeper. We're not sure. We haven't seen Amon do this before. So it's a risk in itself, but he is a pod still. Whereas Dale is seemingly not pod as he once was. We've had 7.5% on top of the 1.8 that already owned him, which sees him over to 9 point something, almost 10%. So he's not a true pod anymore, but he is less than 10% owned still. Okay, so 544. What have we got? Let's go on average. So we've got Dale. I'm not interested in Salem. Got Roberts. I'm interested. Could be interested in Holmes. Bring in a cat for a cat. I don't mind Naz. He is a safe pick, but he doesn't have like a ceiling. Holmes is also very much the same. So if we look at Naz, for example, and we just go through his last season, just quickly, what was his top score? So we got a 120 here, a 134, about a 134. Now, same can be said for Holmes. What are we looking at? Because there probably was a slight role change in him for this year. But 112, 134, 133, 118, 121. So Holmes has been able to go big more consistently for higher than a 120. And Holmes has the DPP, which could be useful if we need it. So that's an option. Is there anyone else? Well, there's a Fraser. Now, this one is tricky because he is going to make cash and he's going to essentially probably get up towards the 450 point. The consideration with this is if you get Fraser, you're going to get him to make all your cash, and I imagine you're going to hold him until a Mills comes in. And then when Mills comes in, you downgrade Fraser to Mills, and then you've essentially got your 5th promo spot. But that's now 2 trades to find a keeper in that spot. I don't know how happy I am spending that many trades in that one spot. I feel like I'd rather just go up now to someone like a Holmes who could be top 10. I don't imagine he's top 6. Could be a Naz who we haven't seen do high ceilings really, but he's actually played pretty consistently. It's a good buy, as in like round 13. I would love to pick up Clark. And there is a way we can pick up Clark, but it means we don't get Henderson. And cash gen is king. So I really want to hold on and get all the rookies that are going to make a lot of cash. As I said, we've got Nod, Nevitt, Lindsay, Ashcroft. We'll have Henderson. We did have Sardis. He still could make us some cash. We've got Davidson here. There's a few different things. So it's probably out of these three, each have pros and cons. The only con to Amon is that he's got to buy. And he's a bit of a risk because we've got 11% ownership on Naz. We've got 26% ownership on Holmes. And then a real pod pick. Pod picks have worked well for me so far. Richards has done well. Dunkley has done well. Zorko probably wasn't a pod. And we've got Sheasel, which could be a failed blocker, essentially. But to maximize cash, I actually don't mind grabbing a mod in here. I feel like it's there. I feel like I want to take the risk. There's, yes, natural progression, but I also think because of the swing that Sicily does, I think it just opens up a slightly higher ceiling. And if we look at his past scores against GWS, 131 sitting there. Now, I haven't gone too much into this, as in with Sicily after that round 21, possibly. But he has done it before. If we look at last season, we've had a 112, 106, 118, 117s, 102, 133. Like he's 123, 131, 123. What's his floor looking like? A 60. So he can have the quiet game as well. So we're hoping that there's been a slight shift in how the Hawks play. And by the looks of it, it is because they're moving a lot more in transition. Again, the obvious concern here is that, well, he has the bye in round 4. Is there a way I can pick him up after? And not really. I don't plan on getting rid of Sheasel. I don't plan on getting Zorko. Getting rid of Zorko. I don't plan on trading out Dale. If I get anyone here that's not Amon, I'm not going to get him in because Roberts is going to stay there. And then I need to make room for Mills. So, because Roberts is a keeper. So, really, this could become Fraser. Just to make the cash and then wait for Mills. This is what we could be looking at. Because then we bank 173. We put that on top of our Pepper next week. We've got Smith. Even though I don't want him. But it gives us some opportunities to do something. It gives us, like, if we use the boost to bank 173, essentially, I think that's solid. Gives us, again, not that you leave much into projections, but it gives us a fair bit to go off. So there's a few different ways that we can treat this if good old Stewie is not named. For the moment, because we know Mills is going to come in, and we're going to have 5 here, but if I bring in Mon, I'm already settled. But what does that mean in regards to having a bias or having a Mills? Do we have room for him? Because he's probably going to be a solid value. I'm actually considering putting Mills in our flex if I do this. That will be the plan at least. Move around with some DPP and some swings, and I bring Mills into the flex. We're going to treat it, that's how we looked at with Flynn. How I want to look at it with Mills. And Mills will eventually get DPP if it is that mid-time role that we've wanted. And there's also no guarantee Mills works out. Mid-prices don't always work. Chera and Callahan seem to be working. Perryman failed. SDK, I would consider a fail. It's just not working. Even Day failed, in my opinion. So, see how it goes there. But this is one of the structures I'm looking at. It's a little bit silly grabbing someone before the buy. I totally get it, but it's best 18. The risk is kind of mitigated. And it means that we've just got some points of difference to help get us ahead. I can't get a Clark. And if I want to get a Clark, I have to miss Henderson. And I don't want to do that. So I want to be able to have points of difference. If I follow the pack, I'm just going to go where the pack goes. And I don't want that. So we'll see how we go. In regards to rookies, break-evens, who's on the bubble? Let's have a look at break-evens. Bias, obviously the main trading that we're going to look at for next week. If you haven't got the must-haves, so we have Driscoll, we have Lindsay, we've got Nevitt, and we've got Levi. Get them in some way or form this week. You have to. Good cover, good break-evens. They're going to make you a lot of cash. McRae has a crazy break-even, so McRae's just going to go up in value. Who else have we got? Conor O'Sullivan. Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of people are hot on it after the 84. There are too many questions around his role, or I wouldn't say job security. I think he's done enough to lock in some time with the team. But it might be like an interchange role where he's resting, players and coming on there, where he's not going to get that pure role like we saw with Stewart out last week, where he was able to capitalize and get an 84-ish. So for the price, I don't mind it. If Stewart doesn't play this week or next, I think O'Sullivan's his stocks just went up, and I would actually consider trading him in for the quick point cover and cash grab that he would be, because again, if we bring in a Dale, we've got Roberts, that cash can eventually lead to Mills, and it means we've got plenty of cash to move around the field as we need. But that means I would also probably look to bring in Callahan maybe instead of going up in that D5 position, which means we also minned out on Henderson. So a few different things to consider there. But ultimately, follow me on X if you want to stay up to date. Murphy Reed will make some cash, but I think there's others like a Henderson around that price, which will make you more. Davidson, I'm pretty sure we've all got. Camporelli, I think we've all kind of got. Hopefully he's not sub again, so he can make us some cash. Who have we? We've got Elijah, we've got Hall. I'm not sure Hall's a must-have. But again, we're looking at the guys that have played 2 games and that aren't on the bye. Hamling's also an interesting one. I've not really looked into him all that much. What have we got? We've got a 76 and a 69 for a 160k. It's actually not bad. One to watch off the bye. The ones to look forward to for next week, probably looking at Hall, if he can keep a spot. Glossy as well, if he can keep a spot. Now, Stone, coming off the bye, still waiting on team sheets. If he gets named, awesome. He's going to make some cash at a negative 39. We can probably look to offload him if you need to. Ethan Reed, potentially one to keep an eye on. Not sure about Ned Long and Patton. Who else we got? Chandler, don't touch, please. Ward is going to make some cash, but Warple is due back in a few weeks, so just be mindful of that. Armstrong's going to make some cash. Sardis can and probably will most likely make some cash. However, whether he has a role when he comes back from the bye, with Parrish probably coming in, Setterfield being ready, few question marks. But we hope that he's done enough to at least play one more game for a little bit to give us maybe a 60 and make us a little bit of cash just to get him over the 200 mark and then downgrade. That's the plan at least. Curtin, if you were really desperate. DeWar is actually quite interesting. He scored quite well. The only problem is I do believe it looks like he had a role shift looking at the stats, because round 1 he had kick-ins and he did pretty poorly overall. He only got a 27. That in itself is not great. But last week he did not play back. He played a bit more forward. I think he kicked a goal or 2 as well. We'd have to have a look at his stats to be very sure. But there's one to watch there. I like the idea of Aiden Johnson. He looks very, very solid. Pushed out a 60. I'm watching him this week to see if I want to bring him in for like a Kako next week, once Kako makes some cash, hopefully this week. That's an easy downgrade for me. I think Pelpepper's a bit of a hold still too. Reed, slow burn. Pryor, slow burn. Kako, very slow burn. Trainer, I don't hate the idea of training him out. Edwards is one to watch. Same as Moraes. Hasty could get named again this week. I traded him out, so if he does get named, I'll be pretty annoyed. Hanley's already done the cash. Who else have we got that we can look at? Bowie or Bowie is definitely an interesting one. You're probably looking at him versus like a Fraser. I think Fraser's got more opportunity to maintain. However, Bowie has proven that he can score with May in the team. So one to watch. I definitely think it's probably better just to go down to Conor O'Sullivan in the defensive line and then use that money elsewhere. Outside of that, really, like Callahan's probably going to go up a fair bit. Smith will make money eventually when he plays. Pal Pepper, again, I actually think if you have him, you still hold him for this week. He might, if he pushes out his 50, he's still going to get up to that 200k mark, which is beautiful. So that's where we're looking at with break evens and rooks that you can try to get into your team. As I said, Bice is a target for next week. VCs and Cs leading into the round. Now, the VC that is probably most obvious to me is a McRae. Against Richmond, we've seen what he can do. Does he get some extra attention? Maybe. Not so sure. See what happens there, but worth a shot. And then my C is probably going to fall on, I don't know if a Dale is a captaincy option. I really don't think we're going to get that high score again from him. Zorko could be, but the weather is a consideration because it's going to be a scrappy game, which means is there more behinds? But is that DE potentially going to hit because, you know, it's going to be very scrappy. But does that then play into the Dunkley's tackle game, contested possession game? It could go either. I made the incorrect decision of captaining Dunkley with Neil at full throttle. Didn't work out, but I feel like this could be a game for Dunkley over Neil just because of the tackle machine that Dunkley is. What else could you do here? Well, if you have a Fremantle player, such as a Sarong or Brayshaw or a Clark, I think they're a safe captaincy option as well as a fallback because they got West Coast and they're on Sunday. Some people are going to look at Shees. In regards to GWS versus Hawthorn, not too sure any options really stand out. Again, I don't really think anyone from Richmond you get a captain. Maybe a Noah Anderson against, or Matt Rao if you have him against Geelong. I know Noah Anderson's had some massive games against Melbourne, so Noah Anderson could be a shout for a VC that early. TDK against English, potentially. Against Essendon, I probably wouldn't vice captain anyone on Essendon. I'd feel comfortable chucking a VC on Rosie as well. Rosie has done quite well against Essendon previously. So definitely have a look at that. Some people definitely like just getting a VC done on Thursday and just taking it and not having to worry about it for the rest of your week. So we'll see what happens there. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the team that we're going to lead into round 3 with. Obviously, all depending on what happens with Stewart. Either it's chopped out and we bring in Amon or Naz. Either are great options, or if Stewart is out for, again, what I would assume is 2 weeks, then we just go Connor O'Sullivan, who's going to actually give us a fair bit of cash to actually make some moves in. We can then move Henderson into potentially someone like Finn Callahan and just move around a few different things here. So we'll see how we go. Very curious to see what you guys are doing this week in regards to your trades. Are you stuck? Are you a Stewart owner? Are you just waiting for the confirmation that he's gone and he's probably not coming back for a few weeks given it's a PCL? Things to consider. But let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Even turn the noties on just so you know when things get uploaded and when a live stream's happening. Live streams will be sporadic and never scheduled. It's just whenever I have the time. But I will schedule it in if I know I've got a night free, just so you guys are aware and can pin it and get notified when I go live. Thanks again, legends. I'll see you in the next one.